My son whispered at the airport, "Dad, don't try to join us. You'll only slow us down," while his wife rolled her eyes. But when the attendant announced the tickets were all in my name, he couldn't board. His trip ended here. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're watching from, your city, your gate number, your couch, your bus seat, because I want to know how far a story like this can travel. I'm standing at gate 17 with an old leather duffel that still smells like cedar and coffee, and my son leans close enough that I can feel the heat of his breath on my ear. "Dad, don't try to join us. You'll only slow us down." He says it softly like he's doing me a favor, like a kindness hurts less if you whisper it. His wife doesn't bother with softness. She looks me up and down, rolls her eyes, and angles her body away from me, like the premium lane is a country where I don't have a visa. I keep my hands folded over the handle of the duffel, steady, calm, the way you hold steady when a boat rocks. Around us, people zigzag past with neck pillows and paper cups, and the big monitor flips through cities like a postcard rack. I know the shape of this moment as soon as it arrives. It has the thin smile of a clerk who says company policy, and the weight of a door almost, but not quite, closing. He doesn't pull back after the whisper. He waits for something from me. A flinch, a complaint, a small explosion. I'm too old for explosions. I learned a quieter language a long time ago, the kind my wife said was scarier than shouting. She used to call it my winter voice, cool and level, a voice that made a room take a breath. I don't use it yet. I glance at the rim of the jet bridge where the metal meets the carpet, at the light catching on the chrome bar of the boarding sign. The gate agent's radio crackles. The scanner chirps like a small bird. My son's wife shifts her weight and puts her hand on her carry-on, the kind of suitcase that can spin on a dime. She likes things that move fast and shine. "Board when they call the last group," she says, friendly, the way a warning sign is friendly. She gives me a smile that's all teeth and no eyes. "You'll be more comfortable there," as if comfort is what I came for. "Enjoy," I say. Just that one word, no bite, no edge. The way you put a plate down between two people who are hungry and say, "Go on." He mistakes the way I say it for surrender. He hears "go" and misses the weight of the silence on either side of it. That's fine. I was young once. I miss things too. He turns away with relief that's bigger than it needs to be. Relief that tells me this isn't just about boarding a plane. This is about a story he's been telling himself for months. That I am luggage to be checked, a warm obligation, a man who will always be there in the background and never in the way. He doesn't look back. She doesn't either. You and I, we know airports. They are built for leaving. They make leaving easy. The white lights are bright enough to convince you that it's always daytime, and time is always moving forward. I watch them walk toward the lounge like they're already halfway to their destination. He walks like he's late to something important. She walks like the important thing is herself. I'm not unkind in my head. I try not to be. I have a simple rule in my house that I learned from the woman I loved. You can think anything you like, but if it makes your heart smaller, put it down. So I don't think she is the reason he is like this. I don't think he has forgotten the man who taught him how to tie his laces or fold a map. I think about how a person can love speed and still end up in the wrong place. I think about how sometimes the slow things keep you safe. A slow breath, a slow decision, a slow smile. While they vanish into the well-lit quiet through the frosted glass, I stay where I am. I step a little to the side so the line can move. A little girl is dragging a pink backpack with ears and a tail, and her father bends to tie the lace she can't reach. He's in a hurry, but he does it anyway, and he kisses the top of her head without thinking. I used to be that father in this same kind of light, with a smaller hand holding mine, and a voice asking 1,000 questions. You might be that father right now, or that mother, or that grown child. Tell me where you are, so I know I'm not talking into a void. Tell me if you've ever been asked to make yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Tell me if you swallowed your words and felt them settle in your chest like small stones. The gate agent glances at me, the way people glance at a painting they can't place. Curious, briefly, then back to work. She's quick with the scanner, polite with the smiles that have to be repeated all day like lines in a play. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know my son. But I catch the small pull between her eyebrows when she looks at the screen and then at the space where my son and his wife were standing before they drifted away. It's a crease I know well. It shows up when something doesn't match, when a name is in one place and the face is in another. I slip my passport back into the inside pocket of my jacket, and my thumb pauses on a slim envelope with an embossed edge. It sits there, the way some things sit in your life, quiet, unassuming, but solid. Paper can be stronger than iron if you sign it with intention. I take a seat by the window because I have always liked windows, even the ones that look out onto nothing in particular, even the ones that show you only a sliver of sky and a set of blinking lights. This window gives me a view of our plane's nose and a man in a reflective vest making hand signals to a vehicle I can't see. I rest the duffel on my knees and run a finger over the initials on the tag. A.I., my wife's. She bought me this bag after my first year of back-to-back trips, back when I thought travel would tire me out, and it turned out it just taught me to sleep in small spaces. She laughed and said, "A bag should outlive a man if you treat it right." She treated everything right. The place settings, the garden, the kid. If you're still with me, if you haven't scrolled away yet, say the name of someone who treated things right. Put their name in the comments like a small prayer. It helps. It really does. Boarding time inches closer in that peculiar airport way, where minutes stretch and then snap suddenly back. My son and his wife reappear without the lounge glow I expected. Just a thin sheen of impatience that clings to people who think lines are for other people. She takes the lead the way some people do when there's a velvet rope and a metal stanchion involved, chin up, smile loaded for the scanner. He follows, phone in hand, ready to show whatever badge gives him the edge. He doesn't look for me. That's important, I think. Not because I need to be seen. I've done enough work in my life without a spotlight. But because not looking for someone is its own kind of sentence. You can say, "You'll slow us down," with your lips, and then you can say it again with your eyes by not checking if the person you love is still in the room. Pre-board for passengers needing extra time, the agent says into the small microphone, and the words float over us all. I don't need extra time. I never did. Even when time pressed itself against my back like a door closing, I learned to keep my hands steady. My son's wife sways a little, impatient with courtesy that doesn't include her. He puts a hand on the small of her back like he's reminding her that they are special, that the world always opens for them the way automatic doors do. He earned some of that opening, I won't lie. He works, he sweats. He tries to be good at the things people say are important. The trouble is what he thinks those things are. I stay in my seat because this is their stage for the moment, not mine. People with wheelchairs roll forward. A soldier nods at the agent, and she nods back in a way that isn't for show. The line behind them forms a spine out into the waiting area. I can feel my son's attention sliding over the room, skipping me like a stone skimming water. That's fine. I adjust my cuff. The watch on my wrist is older than any device he carries, gifted to me by the woman who could make toast feel like a ceremony. The second hand ticks its quiet circle. A circle is a kind of promise. You'll get back to the place you started, but you won't be the same when you do. People always ask, why didn't you say something right then? As if saying something is the only way to carry yourself with dignity. I could have stood and made a scene. I could have listed dates and amounts, and the nights I flew home on red-eyes so I could make the morning school run. I could have told the waiting area the small, tender facts that make a father's life. The way a small boy's head feels heavy when he falls asleep on your chest, the way he kicks at your shins when you try to put him in shoes that feel weird, the way he forgets every hurt within minutes because he trusts you to carry it. I could have said all that, loud and shaking. Instead, I watch. I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth the way my wife taught me when I used to lose my temper at broken appliances and bad traffic. "Save your fire," she said. "Use it to cook with." "Groups 1 and 2, the agent calls, and the words ping like a small bell. My son and his wife take their place. He half turns, not toward me, but toward the possibility of me, and lifts his chin. If you've ever seen someone pretend not to need something they desperately need, you know the look. He taps his phone screen awake. She pinches at a smudge that probably isn't there on the suitcase handle. The agent's scanner blinks ready. The line shuffles, a soft forward surge. You can feel the whole room take a small step with them, like the tide moving in. I feel the envelope against my ribs the way you feel your house key in your pocket when you step out at night. It's not heavy. It's not even important by itself. Paper needs context. Paper needs a name. I lower my eyes to my duffel and smooth the leather with my palm. I decide that when I speak, I will do it with a voice that doesn't shake. I decide to let the room be the room, to let the day play all the way to its end. Not everything requires our interruption. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people tell on themselves with their own choices. If you're still listening, if you haven't put your phone down because the story moves too slowly for the speed of your day, tell me something in the comments. Tell me where you learned patience, or if you never did. Tell me if you think I'm being cruel or kind by standing still. I'll read it later when the ground isn't moving beneath my feet and the light isn't so white. For now, I keep my eyes on the small space between the agent and the podium, where a lot of human life happens. Small smiles, quick frowns, the minute a person realizes a thing is, and not the thing they assumed it was. My son clears his throat. His wife tilts her chin and decides to smile at the agent like you smile at a bellhop. The truth is, this isn't the first time they've wanted to be ahead of me. Who doesn't want to be ahead? We love the word priority because it feels like we earned it. Sometimes we did. Sometimes our parents earned it, and we borrowed it without reading the terms. The truth is, I've let them go ahead in small ways for months now. At the restaurant door, into conversations, into explanations about whose idea something was. It cost me nothing to let a young person feel first if they are also learning how to be second when it matters. But there's a difference between letting someone pass and being told to step aside because you are a problem to be solved. "You'll slow us down," he said, and the sentence put its hands on my shoulders and tried to turn me. I didn't let it. You might think I'm dragging this out to be dramatic, but let me tell you something you already know in your bones. Real time is slower than story time. In real time, this takes minutes, 3, maybe 4. But in those minutes, there is a whole life of choices. And a man can stand very still and reconsider the shape of his family. He can decide that love without respect is a chair with 3 legs. You can sit in it if you're careful, but it will throw you sooner or later, and you will blame gravity when you should blame the missing leg. I don't want a chair that throws me. I don't want to be the missing leg. I want the chair to stand, even when no one is looking. "Final boarding in 20 minutes, another voice says over the speakers, somewhere far away overlapping with our exact moment like a ghost of another gate. I look down the concourse and see a boy running to catch a hug from a grandmother who lifts him as if her arms remember the exact weight of him from years ago. I blink and let the picture pass. My son takes a half step forward. The agent raises her hand without looking up. The universal hold-on sign, because something on her screen is not arranged the way she expected it to be. My son's wife makes a small sound with her tongue that says the universe should be smoother. I feel my heart slow down on purpose. I feel that winter voice come and sit beside me, very polite, very sure. Not angry, something colder. The kind of weather that clears the air. And if you're sitting in an airport right now, or on a bus, or at a kitchen table, if you're hearing my words through a tiny speaker and thinking of someone you love and someone who hurt you, I'm telling you this so you don't have to guess what I did next. I stayed seated. I kept my bag on my knees. I let the agent do her job. I let my son live in the story he'd told me at my ear. "You'll only slow us down." And I let the minutes show him whether that story was true. I didn't have to move to change the shape of the moment. I just had to wait and breathe and keep my hands folded. The soft hum of the terminal covered our little silence like a blanket, and the second hand on my watch kept its faithful circle. And somewhere, not far from here, a door was about to open, not with a clang, not with a crash, but with a quiet click that would travel farther than any of us expected. The scanner made a small, happy beep for the passenger in front of them, and then an odd cough when my son stepped up. He smiled like men smile when doors always open for them. He held out his phone with the digital boarding pass as if the light alone should be enough to unlock the world. His wife leaned forward a little, shoulder angled like a spear. The agent scanned. The screen flashed red for a blink, then green, then red again. The agent frowned. My son laughed lightly, the kind of laugh that says, "This is a glitch, not a rule." "Try again," he said, polite but already tired. The agent tried again. Red. The line shuffled. People behind them pushed their bags forward a centimeter at a time. I stayed in my seat by the window, watching the reflection of their bodies in the glass. I could have stood up. I did not. The agent typed, clicked, and then did the thing all real professionals do when something is off. She looked up, met my son's eyes, and asked a simple question. "Are you traveling with Mr. Ibrahim?" She said my name clearly, without apology. His wife answered for him. "We're companions," she said, chin high, smile ready. "He'll meet us on board." The agent did not smile back. She turned slightly and pressed the little microphone on her desk, the one that sends your voice out over the tired people and paper cups and the hum of the building. Her voice wasn't loud, just firm enough to reach. "Attention. Companions traveling on reservation under the name Mr. Ibrahim. Companion tickets require the primary traveler to board first. The tickets are all in his name." She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. The words hovered in the air like a sign you drive past too often to read. My son turned, but not all the way, as if seeing me would give weight to a truth he wanted to put down. His wife didn't turn at all. She flipped her phone screen up and down, already in a call that hadn't started yet, already in an argument with someone who wasn't there. The sound of the announcement rippled through the waiting area, and then folded back into the regular noise of the airport. Some people didn't hear it, and some heard it and pretended they didn't, the way we do when a stranger's problem skims close to our own, but not close enough to pull us in. A child somewhere laughed at something on a tablet. A man coughed. The coffee machine hissed. I could feel the muscles in my jaw set, not from anger, but from a memory rising, clear as glass. My wife and I in the kitchen at 2 a.m, that soft lamp over the sink, pooling light on the counter. A paper map open like a sail. She'd circle places with a blunt pencil and then lean her head on my shoulder and say, "We'll take him when he's tall enough to see over the rail." We did. We took him to see mountains that looked like the backs of sleeping whales, to a lake that smelled like pine and stone, to a museum where he asked why the dinosaurs had to leave so soon, and I didn't have the heart to give the real answer. We kept our promise one small trip at a time until the world itself felt like our family room. I held that memory now, like a warm mug in cold hands. It made me softer than I wanted to be. It made me steady in a different way. My son stepped away from the scanner with a shallow breath, then came toward me. He didn't sit. He hovered, hands on his hips, the way he did the first time he drove my old car and couldn't get the seat to move just right. "Dad, can you just go?" he said, low and urgent, like the way he had whispered before. The words had edges this time. "Quickly, just board so we can board." I looked up at him. His tie was a shade darker than his shirt. The tie pin was a little crooked. He didn't notice. He never did when he was tense. "I can," I said. Then I let the next words walk out slowly, because speed is not the same as grace. "Will you?" He stared at me like I had spoken another language. "What do you mean?" he asked. His wife arrived on my other side, still on hold, phone pressed to her cheek like a hot cloth. "He means," she said, "that he wants to make a point." She smiled at me, ice over water. "We don't have time for points today." Time. If I lined up all the hours I worked while my son slept safely down the hall, they would reach from this gate to the far end of the terminal and back. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was the deal I made with the life I wanted. A good roof, a garden with stubborn tomatoes, shoes that didn't pinch, a school that treated him like somebody's whole world. I traveled when the company needed me. I slept sitting up. I came home when I could. On those mornings, my wife would hand me a mug and a kiss and say, "You're here for breakfast, hero." That's enough. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who was trying not to drop a plate. So I didn't list that now for him. I didn't give numbers. I didn't bring out receipts. I did something smaller. I looked at the agent and said, in a voice you could spread on toast, "Would you mind explaining the policy one more time?" The agent understood immediately that I wasn't asking her to take my side. I was asking her to say the truth out loud, over the air we all share. She pressed the microphone again and spoke, clear and even. "Companion tickets linked to the primary traveler cannot be used to board until the primary traveler has boarded. The tickets on this reservation are issued under the primary traveler's name. Without him, companions cannot proceed." She didn't say my name this time. She didn't need to. My son's face went still. That stillness has always been my tell and his. It's the pause before fight or rethink. His wife took the phone from her ear and let out a soft laugh that wasn't laughter. "We'll just get reissued," she said brightly to no one who could fix it. "We'll rebook in our names." She looked to my son. "We can pay." She said, "we," the way some people say, "you." I could have rescued them right then. I could have stood up and made it all smooth and easy. I could have said, of course, and let them go ahead, like always. But I thought of every small reroute that teaches a person the wrong map. The time he forgot my birthday and sent a quick text with a balloon emoji and a promise to call later that never came. The dinner at my house where they arrived 40 minutes late and left 20 minutes after appetizers, claiming an early morning Pilates class while the soup still steamed. The day they told me they had boundaries around my stories, as if I were a radio that needed volume control. None of these things alone is a crime. Put them together, and they form a path away from the table where we used to sit and listen to one another chew. I don't want to be a man who keeps score, but I am not a man who refuses to read the scoreboard. To be fair, he had planned the trip. He sent me an email with an itinerary and a cheerful line that said, "My treat." I didn't challenge the words. I didn't ask how. I knew math. His treat was made possible by the miles from my profile, the status I earned while falling asleep on plastic headrests, the companion certificates that came every year with the renewal of a card I carried before he learned to tie a tie. Non-transferable, redeemable only by the primary traveler. These words lived in the small print most people never bother to read. I printed those words anyway. I signed where they asked for my name. I slid the paper into an envelope and kept it in my jacket, not as a threat, but as a boundary in ink. Paper is not powerful by itself. It's powerful when it says what you're willing to stand for. "Dad," my son said again, softer, as if the edge had suddenly made his mouth tired. "Can you please just help us out?" He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't say, "I shouldn't have said that to you." He didn't say, "I know these tickets are yours." He said the thing a thirsty person says when he is standing beside a working faucet. "Help us out." I took a breath in through my nose and held it for a count of 3, the way my wife taught me when my temper used to run ahead of my thought. On the exhale, I let my eyes go gentle. "Of course I can help," I said. His shoulders dropped a fraction, a relief he didn't try to hide. "But there are 2 ways to help," I added. He straightened. "We're out of time for lectures," his wife said, a smile with her teeth still showing. "Group 2 is almost done." She was right. The line had moved. The hum had shifted to that restless roll Gates get when the window between "we made it" and "we missed it" narrows. I stood. I did it slowly because slow can be its own kind of power. My knees made their small sound, the one that says you've carried more years than you ever thought you would. I picked up the duffel. The leather warmed against my palm. I walked toward the podium with my son on my left and his wife on my right, feeling like a narrow bridge between 2 rushing streams. The agent smiled because smiling is her job, but it reached her eyes this time, small and honest. I handed her my ID and my paper boarding pass. Yes, paper. I like the way it feels. I like a thing you can crease and fix with a finger. She scanned. The green light stayed green. "Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim," she said. She slid the stub back. My son shifted his weight toward the opening to the jet bridge, already plotting the angle where he could slip through beside me, as if proximity could undo policy. "Hold, please," the agent said gently, and my son's mouth twitched. "As a reminder," she added, not to me, "companions may now board with the primary traveler if the primary traveler consents." Consent. Such a small word for such a large thing. I have learned that consent is not only for bodies, it is for time, attention, money, the stories we let other people tell about us. I looked at my son and then at his wife. I thought about the way she had rolled her eyes as if I were a slow cart in the fast lane. I thought about the way he had whispered a sentence meant to keep me small. I thought about the paper pressed against my heart like a thin shield. And I thought about my wife, who would have said, "Be kind and also be a wall." So I spoke, clear and easy. "I'm happy to board with my companions," I said. "When my companions treat me like I'm with them," his wife snorted softly. "We don't have time to perform feelings at the gate," she said. "Either we go or we don't." The agent glanced at the clock like a human being, not like a machine. "We have 9 minutes until final," she said, helpful, neutral. The word final curled in the air like the end of a ribbon. My son's eyes met mine then, really met them, pupils steady, the way they used to when he was small and wanted to know if the monster in the closet would eat him. He looked tired in the exact way I looked tired at his age, a weariness that comes when you realize the world is not a vending machine, and your coins don't buy what you thought they would." "I shouldn't have said that," he said. Very soft. Not a big speech, not a dramatic bow. Just a sentence that fit inside his mouth and could come out without tearing anything. His wife's head turned fast, surprise and irritation tangling. She opened her lips to say something. She closed them again. "I hear you," I said. "Thank you." Then I waited. Because apologies without room are plants without water. They sit, and then they die. He took a breath. "We want you with us," he said. He didn't add a condition. He didn't add a but. That mattered to me. I nodded. I felt the shape of the envelope again against my ribs. Not a weapon anymore. Just proof that I had been careful with the things the world can try to snatch. "Then we'll go together," I said, and I could feel the way the air changed. Not for the line, not for the agent. For me. Inside my chest, something small unclenched a little, like a hand releasing a stone it had been holding too long. The agent smiled for real now. The kind of smile you only see on faces that have watched hundreds of tiny human dramas and still believe in the neatness of completion. We stepped forward. The agent reached for the scanner, and then, life, in its love of timing, tugged the thread one more time. "Wait," my son's wife said sharply, looking down at her screen. "Our seats!" Her voice had that sharp, thin whine a violin makes when it isn't tuned. "We're not next to each other. I told you we had to be in the first row." She jabbed at her phone as if it were a stubborn button. "Can you move someone?" The agent kept her smile, but it got professional again, smooth as a countertop. "I can check," she said, fingers tapping, "but most of the cabin is assigned." My son looked at his wife with a face that would have been funny if I were a stranger. I am not a stranger. It was not funny. It was two people forgetting the point of the trip in favor of 2 inches of extra space. "I'll take any seat," I said quietly. "I'm fine by the window." My son looked at me like I had handed him his old plastic rocket with the chipped fins. He nodded. "We'll sit wherever," he said, turning back to his wife. "It's fine." She didn't answer. She was busy trying to negotiate with an app. "We're wasting time," she muttered, and the word wasting touched something raw in me. For months I had been told, in so many words, that being slow is waste. Waiting is waste. Listening is waste. I looked at the agent. "Would you mind," I said, "reading out the names on the reservation one more time for clarity?" She did, cheerfully. "Primary traveler, Mr. Ibrahim," she said. "Companions, Ethan Ibrahim and Mrs. Ethan Ibrahim. There are announcements that lift you. There are announcements that level you. This one did both." My son gave the smallest wince at the way his wife's name was attached to his, like a suffix. She didn't notice. In the corner of my eye, the world did its world things. A woman zipped her jacket. A teenager set down a skateboard, then picked it up again. The clock ate another minute. My winter voice sat beside me again. "You can board with me," I said to both of them, low and even. "Or you can make calls and rebook and learn a lesson that will cost you more than money. Either way, we will be fine. The question is whether we will be fine together." My son swallowed. It was a small sound. I heard it anyway. "Together," he said. His wife's eyes flashed. I saw the fight and the calculation race each other across her face. People always told me I was good at reading markets. The secret is that markets are just rooms full of people pretending not to be people. The agent lifted the scanner again, waiting for my nod. The jet bridge door stood open, a bright rectangle leading to a metal tunnel and the promise of a seat and a sky outside the small round window. I thought of my wife, again, of her shawl at the back of a chair, of her voice telling me to save my fire. I thought of the lake we loved, the one where the air smelled like a green apple cut open. I could have turned and walked through, with or without them. I could have handed the envelope across the desk and asked the agent to detach the companions and go on alone. I could have chosen the easier twin of justice, revenge, for the quick heat it brings. Instead, I slipped a hand into my jacket and felt the crisp edge of the paper, not to show it, just to remember that I had done my homework. I had prepared for my own dignity. I let my hand fall back to my side. I looked at my son and saw the boy who once pressed his nose to a plane window and asked me if the clouds had taste. "Stay close," I said. 3 simple words. He nodded like they were heavier than they looked. "Boarding," the agent announced to us, not to the room. "Now boarding." The scanner chimed, The jet bridge was a breath away. The air had that metallic chill that always lives near planes, the smell of movement and coffee and 1,000 goodbyes. Behind us, the line shifted, but no one grumbled now. We stepped forward together, just a fraction. My son's wife stopped once more to adjust her bag, to toggle her app, to try and coax the world into giving her row one. The world did not move. The world rarely does when you ask it to change for your comfort. It moves when you change your stance. I rested the duffel strap higher on my shoulder. My watch ticked. My heart softened just enough to remember that every good boundary I set today was a seed that might grow into a better conversation tomorrow. I was ready to walk, but I did not yet take the first step. I let the moment sit, rich and full, the way bread sits before it rises. I let it teach whoever was willing to learn, including me. The jet bridge door was a bright mouth breathing cool air, and we stood in the breath of it. The agent's hand hovered with the scanner. My son had just said, "Together," and I believed him because I wanted to. His wife stared down at her screen, hunting for RA1 like it was a lost ring. A tiny frown pinched between her eyebrows. This would already be over if we didn't have to do all this, she muttered, and the all this sounded like me. Not the policy, not the app. Me. The winter voice inside me stepped forward, not loud, not hot. Clear, flat, like clean glass. I set the duffel down by my shoe, took the envelope from my jacket, and pressed the flap with my thumb like a man checking a seam. "Ma'am," I said to the agent, calm as a settled pond. "A clarification before we proceed." My son looked at the envelope, at my face, and then at the open door. His throat moved. He knew. He has always known the difference between my patience and my boundary, even when he pretended he didn't. "I'm listening," the agent said, kind and professional, ready to translate a human moment into a simple action. I slid the envelope open and tipped the pages into my hand. The print was small, the kind you read with good light and care. I didn't shove it at anyone. I held it the way you hold a photograph you love. "These are the companion terms tied to the primary traveler on this reservation," I said, gentle as if I were explaining a recipe. "You've already made the announcement, and I appreciate it. I want you to note, for your records, that I haven't consented to companion boarding yet." My son's wife lifted her head quickly, eyes bright with the spark of a fight. "Oh, what is this?" she said, a small laugh that could cut. "Are we seriously performing paperwork theater at the gate?" People in line shifted without moving, the way people do when a guitar string tightens but hasn't snapped. My son whispered my name. "Dad." Just that. No plea, no command. A name is a small bridge. You can stand on it if you're careful. I looked at him, and in that beat I remembered what it felt like to wake up before dawn for a flight and find him sitting at the table in dinosaur pajamas, waiting to hand me a crayon drawing of a plane with lopsided wings. "For you," he used to say, serious and proud. I would put the paper in my carry-on and touch it with 2 fingers during turbulence. I loved the boy who wanted me to take a piece of him into the sky, and I love the man who sometimes forgets where the ground is. Love is a long road. Respect is whether you keep your sides swept. "I will board," I said, clear. "They can follow when we agree on something simple." I turned back to the agent. "Please remove companion boarding for now." The words fit in my mouth like they belong there. The agent didn't ask why. She has seen 1,000 whys and knows most of them are the same. She typed, nodded once. "Confirmed," she said softly. Then to my son and his wife, with the same softness she would use for anyone, "You'll need to see the desk to explore rebooking options if the primary traveler declines companion boarding." Silence is never silent in a place like that. The room filled the pause with a cough, a zipper, the soft squeak of rubber on tile. My son's wife blinked fast, 2 bright flashes, then grounded herself in the one thing that had never failed her: speed. "No," she said quickly, voice sharpening to a point. "Number. We're not playing whatever this is. We just lost time because he..." She stopped herself, but the sentence hung in the air anyway, fully formed. He is the reason. He is the slowness. He is the obstacle. If you've ever felt a word reach for your throat and decide not to let it, you know the work it took in me to keep breathing evenly. My son's hand, the same hand that used to fit inside mine like a puzzle piece, rose a few inches then fell, as if it had been told to be brave and changed its mind. Dad, he tried again, voice lower. I apologized. He had. He had offered a small plank, enough to cross a narrow stream. I had thanked him. But the stream had widened again in 3 words from the person he chose to stand beside. I heard you, I said, and the words were soft. But hearing and learning are different. I turned the paper so the agent could see the heading if she wanted, a courtesy, not a performance, and slid it back into the envelope without flourish. This is not revenge, I said to the space between us, to the cool air and the bright mouth of the jet bridge and the eyes I could feel on my back from the line. This is a boundary sewn with thread I carried for a long time. I will board now. I picked up the duffel. I didn't look back at my son's wife. I didn't look at the clock. The agent scanned my pass. The light went green and stayed green. The little sound, it made a simple chime. Have a good flight, Mr. Ibrahim, she said. Human to human, no extra sugar. You too, I said, and started down the jet bridge. You learn surprising things in jet bridges. You learn that metal makes a kind of hollow hush when your shoes touch it, and that silence can be full. You learn that the smell of coffee and cold air can clean anger out of your chest if you let it. You learn that a man can walk into a narrow, echoing tunnel and feel bigger in the right ways. Halfway down, I stopped, as if the bridge had asked for a toll. I put the duffel down, took out my phone, and sent 3 messages that didn't require heat, only clarity. The first went to my attorney, whose number I know better than my own. Please suspend the discretionary transfers to Ethan until further notice. Activate the respect clause addendum and schedule a sit-down next week. My late wife asked for that clause when the trust was inked. Not to punish, she'd said, tying a ribbon on a stack of envelopes. To remind. The second message went to my property manager. Effective immediately, guests at the villa require my approval. Keys off smart lock for non-listed users. We had welcomed the world into that house. We just hadn't planned for being asked to wait outside our own door. The third message was small and quiet, and I had to put a hand on the wall to send it. A note in the family thread with no preface. Landed late. Will call tonight. Love you. My wife's number still sits in that thread like a star you can't touch. I send messages there the way you send a paper boat down a stream, not to change the river, but to remind yourself there is current. Then I lifted the duffel, breathed, and kept walking. I didn't rush, though the door behind me might already be closing for others. The angle of the bridge turned left and opened to a small vestibule where the flight attendant stood, with a smile that wasn't for show. Welcome aboard, she said, taking the last syllable up like a note. I handed her the stub, and she glanced down, then up, then over my shoulder to the gap where companions might have been. She didn't ask. She has seen more human weather than any of us. Can I help you find your seat? She asked instead. Window, if the wind will allow it, I said. She laughed like she knew exactly what I meant and pointed me down the aisle. I slid into the window and let the leather take my back. I put the duffel under the seat because I don't need to be first in the bins. Through the oval glass, I could see the gate's mouth, and beyond it, a slice of the waiting area. My son and his wife were still at the podium, small figures in a lit frame. He had his shoulders curved toward her. She was talking fast with her hands. The agent had the phone to her ear, listening to some invisible voice that speaks in rules and options. My watch ticked. 1 row up, a man whispered to a woman about a rental car. Across the aisle, a college girl hugged her backpack like it held a small life. The plane made that small, settling groan machines make when they are almost ready to do the thing they were built for. I don't gloat. I don't pump my fist in my pocket or write a victory speech in my head. I try to remember that I am not teaching a lesson. I am practicing a value. Respect is not a banner you wave once. It is a daily chore like dishes. You do it again and again, or the sink fills and the smell tells on you. Still, justice has a taste, and I can admit to you, quietly, here in this thin air, that it tastes like clean water after a salt day. When my son lifted his phone to his ear, I hoped he was calling me. I wanted to hear him say something simple and true, but his head turned toward the wall screen, and I understood. He was calling the airline. He was calling a fix. He was calling the world that has always opened when he pushed hard enough. The line behind them moved. A family with a stroller rolled forward. The agent nodded at them and then back to my son. She gestured to the service desk at the side. He nodded, lips tight, and they moved out of the frame. The flight attendant came by and checked the overheads with a light touch. Anything I can get you before we push? She asked. Just a little time, I said, and she smiled like that was the first honest order of her day. I took my wallet out and opened the soft flap where my wife lives in a small picture with soft corners. She's in the backyard with a scarf around her shoulders, eyes half closed against a wind that tried to take the scarf and failed. We kept our promise, I told her under my breath. We took him everywhere. Today I took him somewhere he hasn't been. The window showed me only my own face superimposed on the gate, older than the face in the wallet, quieter, maybe kinder. I pressed the photo back into its slot and let my fingers rest for a moment on the warmth it left. The pilot's voice came over the speakers, smooth as a bedtime story. He said something about weather and a tailwind and an on-time arrival that made a ripple of relief pass through the cabin. My body remembered the old dance of flights, seatbelt low and tight, tray table up, phone into airplane mode. I did each thing with the small reverence of habit. When I looked out again, my son and his wife had reappeared at the jet bridge threshold with a different agent, a supervisor by the cut of her jacket. There was talking. There was shaking of heads. There was the slow fall of shoulders when the news settles into the place where hope was. The supervisor pointed toward the desk. My son looked at the opening to the bridge, and for a second I thought he might just walk. He didn't. He turned, and for the first time since the whisper at my ear, he looked for me. Not in the room, but on the plane. He scanned the windows like a child scanning a crowd for a familiar hat. I lifted my hand an inch, small as a bird lifting from a branch. His eyes caught the movement, and he saw me. His mouth opened a little, not to speak. No one can hear through glass, but to let something out that had been caught too long. He didn't smile, neither did I. I think we both nodded, only once. The supervisor led them away, and the gate mouth showed only the moving backs of strangers again. The attendant closed the plane door with a gentle thunk that sounded like a sentence ending. That sound puts a line between what you can fix and what you must face. A man across from me crossed himself. The college girl pressed a quick kiss to her fingers and then to her backpack. I breathed in and out, counting to 4 the way my wife taught me when grief sat in our house like a heavy guest. I checked my phone one last time before airplane mode made it a small, quiet box. A message pulsed from an unknown number that wasn't unknown at all, my son's wife. Short, clipped. This is cruel. We'll remember this. I typed 3 words and deleted them twice before I chose the right ones. Please be kind. Then I slid the phone to silent. Taxiing is a strange mercy. It takes long enough to think, but not long enough to overthink. The plane shuddered forward, turned, paused, turned again. The runway stretched like a line you draw with a ruler to keep your handwriting straight. I rested my fingers on the window and felt the faint vibration that means a machine is ready to rise. I tried to pray, but what came was smaller and plainer. Let me hold the line without hardening. Let him find me on the other side of this with his hands open. The engines built their long note. Gravity held us like a firm hand on a shoulder. Then it let go the way good hands do. We lifted. The city fell into tiles and then into a map and then into a blur. Somewhere down there, Gate 17 returned to being nothing special. And a woman in a vest made another announcement, and a tired person stirred creamer into coffee, and a father tied a shoe. Up here, the air evened out. The wings flexed like a spine. I turned my face toward the sliver of sky and watched it lighten by a shade only a painter would notice. People began their small in-flight lives, magazines, movies, snacks opening with soft snaps. The attendant came by with a trash bag, and I handed her the torn corner from my envelope, the part that had separated cleanly when I opened it. Paper can be strong and it can be tender. So can men. I didn't sleep. I let the hum fill me in the way a song does when you're learning it. I thought about what waited when wheels met ground, a lake with a dock that held our shadows side by side once. Mine and my wife's, long and thin, in late afternoon. A small town cafe, where they still know my name because I tip like I'm paying for grace. A grocery list on hotel stationery in my pocket. Bread, cheese, apples, flowers if they have them. It felt right to go there first. To buy something alive for the water, a handful of stems that could release their color and sink. I also thought about a kitchen table with a chipped corner, where, in a week, my son and I would sit, and I would listen more than I spoke, and we would try again at the language of men who love each other and get it wrong. When the seatbelt light went off, I unclipped and reached into the duffel for the smallest thing in it, a folded piece of paper from years ago, creased and recreased, a drawing of a plane with a big square window and 3 stick figures inside, one with glasses, one with a scarf, one with hair like fireworks. The boy who drew it had written their names in shaky letters under each figure, mine, his mother's. In the corner, in tiny pencil, my wife had written a date and a sentence. He thinks clouds taste like marshmallows. You're allowed to cry on planes. The engines are loud and the air is dry, and no one is watching you as closely as you think. I didn't cry. I smiled so softly it might have been mistaken for sleep. Before we started down, the attendant brought me water without asking. You looked like you needed a lake, she said, and it felt like a small miracle that a stranger could see that through all the steel and noise. Thank you, I said. People think miracles are big. Most of them fit in a paper cup. She moved on, and I held the water in my hand like a small, clear truth. My phone, still quiet, held a new badge when I checked the clock. A message from my son. Not long, not polished. We'll talk when you land. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. There would be time. Not the cheap kind, the kind that drips while you scroll. The good kind, the kind you pour for each other and drink without ice. The captain said we'd begin our descent. The city rose from blur to map to tiles again. The flight attendants did their checks, hands on latches, eyes on faces, moving with the choreography that keeps machines honest. I put the drawing back where it belonged and zipped the duffel with a sound that felt like a line drawn on purpose. The pressure in the cabin changed. Ears popped. The world came closer. Out the window, a river folded around a strip of land like an arm. I thought of my son, back at the desk with his wife, rebooking or not, choosing or not, learning or not. Learning is a door you walk through alone. No one pushes you. No one can. The wheels hit the ground with a kiss you could feel in your teeth, and the engines roared their relief. We rolled, slowed, turned, and turned again, and every turn felt like a word we had said today lined up in the right order at last. At the gate, the seatbelt sign chimed, and people stood too fast because we all forget not to. I took my time. Slow is not the enemy. Slow is a way to see. When it was my rose turn to move, I stood, shouldered the duffel, and let the aisle flow around me like a stream around a stone. Outside, the jet bridge waited with its hollow hush. I stepped into it, carrying paper and leather and a long day that felt, somehow, simpler than it had when it started. I kept my winter voice inside me where it belongs, not on my tongue, but in my bones, ready for the next hard thing. And I walked toward the light at the mouth of the bridge, where the air changes and people wait for names they know. And sometimes, on good days, those names answer. The jet bridge opened into a small terminal with bright windows and the soft noise of wheels on tile. I walked out with my duffel on my shoulder, and the feeling you get when the air changes, like the day has a new page. The smell here was different from home, a little cleaner, a little colder, with a hint of rain, even though the sky through the glass looked clear. I didn't hurry. I let the stream of passengers pass me and took my time heading toward the signs for baggage and ground transport. My phone, which had been quiet since takeoff, buzzed once and stopped. I didn't look right away. I wanted my first view of this place to belong only to me. Outside, the taxi line moved like a slow ribbon. I skipped it and took a short walk to the rental desk. The agent there was a young man with a careful haircut and a smile he didn't wear too tight. "Here for a few days?" he asked while his fingers tapped the keys. "Just enough," I said. He offered me an upgrade and I said no. I wanted something simple and steady. The car they gave me was a small sedan with a clean dash and a radio that hummed low even when it was off. I adjusted the seat, set the mirrors, and sat for a moment with my hands on the wheel. You forget how good it feels to be the exact size of a small space that is yours for a while. I checked the phone then. A message from my son. "We need to talk. I'm sorry for what I said. Call me when you can. No fireworks, no excuses." The text had space in it, like a room with a chair and nothing else, waiting. I texted back, "Tonight, after dinner." Then, I put the phone on the passenger seat and started the car. The city thinned, the road stretched, trees took the place of buildings, and then hills took the place of trees. The lake road was the same as I remembered, too narrow, lanes, a shoulder that felt like a suggestion, a fence that leaned as if it had a story about wind. I turned off at the little town before the water and parked by the cafe and the flower shop that share a wall and a smell. I bought a handful of long-stemmed wildflowers, the kind that don't look expensive but hold color like they mean it. The woman behind the counter wrapped them in brown paper and tied the paper with kitchen string. "For someone special?" she asked, like people always ask when there are flowers in your hand. "Always," I said, and she nodded as if that was the right answer. I walked the last part to the lake. The path is packed dirt with a few smooth stones that have learned to accept feet. The dock is old wood, boards silvered by weather and years, nails flush from hands that cared. The water looked like the inside of a thought, still, except for a small circle where a fish rose and slipped back. I stood at the edge, took the string loose, and let the paper fall around my shoes. I held the stems over the water and said her name, just once. I said it the way I would say hello if she walked into the room with her shawl around her shoulders and her hair a little messy from wind. Then I let the flowers go. They made a quiet sound against the surface, a soft knock like a visitor who respects your house. The color spread and drifted, and little by little the water took them. If you've ever watched something you love become part of something larger and kinder, you know that feeling in the chest, like a door opening and a hand easing off your back at the same time. I sat on the dock with my legs hanging over the side and the duffel beside me, my watch ticking its small tick that never lies. I thought about my son standing at a desk in an airport, learning that not everything can be forced into place by will and timing. I thought about his wife and her fast words, sharp and sure, and how being sharp sometimes feels like being safe until it doesn't. I thought about the papers in my envelope, the texts I sent down the jet bridge, the doors I had quietly closed because they needed to be closed for a while. I didn't feel high. I didn't feel low. I felt like a man doing his chores, sweeping the floor of his life so the room feels right again. When evening came, the lake turned that slow gold you can't catch with a phone. I drove back into town, bought a sandwich and a small bag of apples, and checked into the kind of inn where the key is metal and heavy and the carpets smell clean. The room had a window that opened, a chair that didn't wobble, and a bedspread with squares that looked like a quilt. I ate sitting on the edge of the bed, not because I was in a hurry, but because sometimes food tastes better when you don't make a ceremony out of it. Then I washed my hands, sat by the window with the evening air coming in, and called my son. He picked up on the first ring, like he'd been standing with the phone in his. Hand, no background noise, no TV, just his breath. "Dad," he said. He didn't add anything. "I'm here," I said. We let that sit. Sometimes the first thing you say takes the pressure off the second thing. "I'm sorry," he said again, and the word had a body now. "I shouldn't have said you'd slow us down. I shouldn't have asked you to board like you're a key card. I shouldn't have let her talk to you that way. I was trying to make everything smooth and I made it worse." I listened. Apologies often come packed with reasons that sound like excuses. He didn't do that. He kept it plain. I let out a slow breath that didn't need to be a sigh. "Thank you," I said. "I accept it." We were quiet. I could hear a car pass outside my window and the faint sound of someone down the hall closing a door carefully so it wouldn't bang. "There's something else," he said, and here came the part that mattered. "I used your miles. I used your companion certificate. I said it was my treat because I wanted to be the son who treats. I didn't think about the words on the page. I didn't think about the part where it's your name. I wanted the show, not the substance. That's on me." He stopped. His voice didn't break. It didn't need to. I closed my eyes and saw him at 10 years old, trying to carry all the grocery bags himself so he could say he did it. I saw myself then, taking 2 bags from his hands and putting them down and telling him, "Strong is not the same as stubborn." "I'm going to make this simple," I said, "because simple is kind." He didn't laugh, but I heard his mouth try to. "First, no one uses my name to push me out of place. Not at a gate, not at a dinner, not in my house. Second, the villa and the money are not a right. They are a trust. Your mother asked for a respect clause. It's not a weapon. It's a reminder. I've turned the transfer off for now. We'll turn it back on when our respect is back on. Third, your wife is your choice. I will treat her with respect. I expect the same from her. If she needs time to get there, she can have time. But she doesn't get to spend my name while she waits." He didn't argue. He didn't defend. The silence felt like 2 hands turning a jar the same direction. "Okay," he said. I hear you. I agree. Another pause, then. She wants to talk. Not tonight, but soon. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. Good, I said. Tell her she's welcome at my table. We talk there with phones in a bowl and plates that don't get cleared until everyone is finished saying what they need to say. He made a small sound that might have been a smile. I remember the bowl, he said. It's ugly. I laughed, a small laugh I hadn't made in a while. Your mother loved that bowl. That's why it stays. We picked a day. Sunday afternoon. My house. I promised to make tea the way his mother liked it, with mint, leaves in the pot. He promised to bring a cake, and not a store cake with a hard face, but a soft one from the bakery that knows how to leave room for the knife. We hung up with a simple goodnight. No speeches, no promises we can't keep. When the call ended, I left the window open, lay back on the bed, and let the room cool my face. I slept the way you sleep when you've stopped bracing for the next thing. Sunday came like a door that didn't squeak. I was up early, not to prepare a performance, just to sweep and boil water and lay out cups and the old tin of sugar with a dent on the side where it fell once. The kitchen looked like itself. I set the bowl by the edge of the counter, not to trap anyone, but to remind us we are here to talk. The doorbell rang on time. My son stood there in a sweater that made him look like the boy he had been and the man he was both at once. His wife stood beside him with a cake box balanced on both hands like an offering. Her face was different from the airport face, less hard, tired in a better way. She didn't kiss my cheek or hold out her arms like a show. She said, "Hello, Mr. Ibrahim," in a voice that was careful, which is a good place to start. We sat. I poured tea and let the mint steam rise. No one reached for a phone. My son watched the steam the way he used to watch ants carry a crumb, interested and quiet. His wife cleared her throat. "I was wrong," she said, and the words were plain enough to stand up by themselves. "I was rude to you. I wanted everything fast because I didn't want to be left. That's not your problem. I used your name like it was a card to swipe. That wasn't respect. I am sorry." She looked up and met my eyes. People always think apologies need to be dramatic. They don't. They need to be directed. She had faced me. That was enough. "Thank you," I said. "I accept it." I turned to my son. "I want to show you something." I took the envelope from the drawer where I had placed it when I came home and set it on the table. I didn't slide it at him like evidence. I opened it like I was opening a family album. "This is the small print," I said. "This is what the world pays attention to when we are not paying attention. This is what keeps us honest." He read, not skimming, not pretending. When he finished, he nodded once. "Understood," he said. He placed the papers back in order and handed them to me with 2 fingers, the way you hand something you respect. We talked then, not just about planes and policies, but about small things that become big when you stack them. I told him the story about my birthday text and the soup left on the table at the dinner they rushed. He told me about his work pressure and the way he tries to keep up with a life that always asks for more. I listened. He listened. Listening is hard if you have practiced winning. We practiced something else that day. We practiced staying. At one point, his wife asked if she could say something that might sound sharp. I said yes, and she surprised me by choosing soft. "I never knew your wife," she said, "but I know the way you say her name. I can try to be kinder to the way you carry her." She looked at the shawl I keep on the back of the chair by habit, not display. "That can stay," she added. I nodded. It was always going to. When the cake was cut and the plates had crumbs on them, my son reached into his pocket and put a small card on the table. It was a key card to the villa. He slid it toward me and then drew his hand back, palms open. "We'll ask before we go," he said. "Every time. And we'll host you there, not host ourselves at your expense." I picked up the card, looked at the number printed in small gray, and put it in the bowl with the phones. It looked almost pretty there. "Thank you," I said. "Transfers?" he asked, quiet and without pressure. "When we keep this going," I said, tapping the table between us. "The way we did today, they'll resume, not as a prize, as a sign that the house is in order." He nodded like this was not a trick or a test, just a plan. Before they left, I went to the drawer again and took out something else. A folded paper map with 3 circles and a soft pencil, places my wife and I promised each other we would see again. I flattened it on the table and tapped the first circle with my finger. "I'm going next month," I said. "A small trip, window seat, no rush." I looked at my son. You can come if you want, not as companions, as travelers who walk beside each other. He didn't answer right away. He looked at the map the way a person looks at a new street, curious, a little careful. I want to, he said. We'll see if work lets me. His wife surprised me again. We'll make it let him, she said. I'll help. It's time we learned a different kind of fast. They stood in the doorway after that with their coats on and the cake box empty and our words in the room like furniture that finally fits. My son hugged me. It wasn't a show hug, not short and clapped, not long and clinging. It was a regular hug that said what it needed to say without making promises it couldn't keep. His wife held out her hand and I took it. Thank you for the tea, she said. Thank you for the paper, I answered. Small print, she said, almost smiling. Big meaning, I said, and we both let that be the last sentence. When the door closed, I stood for a minute and listened to the house. It sounded like itself again. I washed the cups and wiped the table and folded the shawl over the back of the chair, exactly the way she used to. Then I sat and took out my phone. I opened the family thread and typed a few words that felt right for the day. We talked, we learned, we'll keep trying. I added a small green leaf emoji because she liked plants more than words. Then I put the phone in the bowl with the key card, and the room felt very quiet and very full. If you've been listening to this from a couch, from a bus, from a gate with your own bright mouth of a jet bridge, I want you to hear this part clearly. The line at the gate is not only at the airport, it's at the table, it's at the front door. It's in your voice when you say, "You'll slow us down," and don't hear what that means. It's in mine when I choose winter over fire. Families don't hand you their keys so you can lock them out. If you want the trip, you don't cut your father from the boarding line. You walk beside him. And if you can't, your trip ends where your respect did, right at the gate. If this story found you at the right time, tell me where you're watching from. Like, share, comment, and subscribe.